I pulled my diplomatic sedan into the circular driveway of the family estate, the gravel crunching beneath armored tires that my family would never recognize. At 26, I was returning home not as the disappointment they'd branded me, but as something they couldn't comprehend. My secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from the Secretary of State's office. Ambassador Chen, confirm receipt of Romanian briefing materials. Looking forward to Monday's ceremony. I authenticated my response quickly. Tomorrow's formal appointment as the youngest U.S. ambassador to Eastern Europe in history would wait. Tonight was about settling scores. Through the windshield I could see the familiar white columns of the Georgian mansion purchased with old tobacco money 3 generations ago. The same house where I'd been systematically excluded from family gatherings for 4 years. All because I'd chosen government work over joining the family's pharmaceutical distribution business. Constance opened the heavy oak door before I could knock, her face lighting up with genuine warmth. Miss Rebecca. Oh my goodness, look at you. You look so professional, so important. And that car outside, mercy. Hi Constance. Is everyone here for the reunion? Oh yes, the whole family. Your father's been holding court on the terrace, talking about business expansion. Your cousins are all here with their latest accomplishments to brag about. She lowered her voice. I probably shouldn't say this, but they don't know you're coming. Your father said you weren't invited because you were still playing government, instead of building a real career. Playing government. If only they knew my playing had caught the attention of 3 senators and resulted in a direct recommendation for the youngest diplomatic appointment in recent State Department history. I made my way through familiar hallways past oil paintings of distinguished Whitman ancestors and display cases filled with pharmaceutical company awards. The sound of conversation grew louder as I approached the terrace where the annual reunion was in full swing. Through the French windows I could see the usual suspects. Uncle Charles discussing quarterly profits, Cousin Bradley showing off his new Rolex while talking about his promotion to regional sales manager, and Cousin Miranda sharing photos of her designer kitchen renovation. At the center sat my father, Robert Whitman III, patriarch of the family business and self-appointed judge of everyone's life choices. He was gesturing with a whiskey glass, sharing his theories about success. The problem with young people today, I heard him saying, is they think they can chase dreams instead of building wealth. Take my own daughter, brilliant girl, but completely delusional about what constitutes a real career. Rebecca always was too idealistic, Mom chimed in. Government work sounds noble, but it doesn't pay the bills. I just hope she figures that out before it's too late. It might already be too late, Uncle Charles added. At her age she should be establishing herself, building equity, making connections that matter. Instead she's probably filing paperwork in some bureaucratic office. I took a deep breath and stepped onto the terrace. 23 family members turned to stare, their expressions ranging from surprise to irritation. Rebecca. My father's voice was flat. What are you doing here? Hello, Dad. Everyone. I smiled politely. I hope you don't mind me stopping by. Actually, we do mind, Mom said, setting down her wine glass. This is a family gathering for people who contribute to the family legacy. You made your choice to abandon that legacy. Abandon the legacy, I repeated. Interesting perspective. Bradley laughed from his position by the bar cart. Come on, Becca. You can't seriously still think government work is a real career. I made more in commissions last quarter than you probably make in a year. Speaking of careers, Miranda chimed in. Mom said you're still doing that internship thing at the State Department. When are you planning to get a real job? Build up. The assumptions flowed freely, each family member eager to share their assessment of my failures. What they didn't know was that my internship thing had ended 2 years ago when I'd been promoted to Senior Foreign Service Officer, leading to increasingly sensitive assignments in European economic diplomacy. You know what your problem is, Rebecca? Dad leaned forward, warming to his favorite topic. You're too proud to admit you made a mistake. Government work is for people who can't make it in the real world. It's welfare with a title. Government jobs are basically charity positions, Uncle Charles agreed. No real responsibility, no pressure to perform. It's where mediocre people go to feel important. The thing is, Bradley said, checking his expensive watch, you could still turn this around. Dad could probably find you something entry-level in procurement. You'd start at maybe 35,000, 40,000, Obviously nothing like what the rest of us make, but it would be honest work. Honest work, I repeated. As opposed to what I'm doing now? Rebecca, please, Mom sighed dramatically. We're not going to pretend that whatever you're doing in Washington is real work. Filing papers, attending meaningless meetings, processing applications, that's not contributing to society. What would you consider contributing to society? Building businesses, Dad declared. Creating jobs. Generating wealth that supports families and communities. Real impact, not bureaucratic busy work. Like what we do, Miranda added proudly. Our pharmaceutical distribution puts life-saving medications in hospitals across 3 states. That's meaningful work. I almost smiled at the irony. My last assignment had involved coordinating medical aid distribution to refugee camps in Eastern Europe, working directly with pharmaceutical companies to ensure critical medications reach displaced populations. Speaking of pharmaceuticals, have any of you worked with international distribution? Foreign governments, regulatory frameworks across different countries. Uncle Charles shook his head dismissively. That's exactly the kind of red tape nonsense that government bureaucrats create. In the real world, we focus on results, not paperwork. International work is mostly political theater anyway, Bradley added. A bunch of diplomats having expensive dinners while real businesses do the actual work. Diplomats, I mused. What do you think diplomats actually do? Waste taxpayer money, Dad said bluntly. Talk in circles, accomplish nothing, live off government salaries while pretending their social events matter. They're basically professional party planners, Miranda laughed. Organizing receptions and writing reports nobody reads. The conversation continued for 20 minutes, each family member demonstrating their superior understanding of how the world worked. They painted government service as refuge of the incompetent, international relations as meaningless pageantry, and diplomatic work as elaborate pretense. The bottom line, Dad finally declared, standing to refill his drink, is that you're 26 years old with nothing to show for it. No house, no real savings, no equity, no business connections that matter. You're living like a college student while your cousins build actual wealth. At some point, Mom added with false concern, you have to face reality. Government work doesn't lead anywhere. No upward mobility, no real recognition, no opportunity to make a mark on the world. Which is why, Uncle Charles concluded, we've made this family gathering about celebrating actual achievement. People who've built something meaningful, who've contributed to the family's success story. And that excludes me, I said. For now, Dad replied. But it doesn't have to be permanent. Come work for the company. Start building something real. Stop wasting time with this government fantasy. What if the government work has led somewhere? I asked. What if there's more to the story? Bradley laughed outright. Like what? Did you get promoted to senior filing clerk? Managing paper-clip inventory. Maybe she's processing passport applications now, Miranda giggled. That's probably considered advancement in government work. The State Department doesn't really do advancement like real organizations, Uncle Charles explained with authority. It's mostly about time served rather than performance. Very different from merit-based promotion. And what would you consider real impact? I pressed. Revenue generation. Market expansion. Building something that lasts. Dad gestured around the estate. This house, the business, the family's position in the community. That's what success looks like. I checked my watch. The timing was perfect. That's fascinating, I said. I'd love to continue this conversation, but I have some people arriving shortly who might be interested in your views on international relations. People arriving? Mom's eyebrows rose. What people? The sound of multiple vehicles coming up the driveway drew everyone's attention. Through the terrace railings, we could see a motorcade of black SUVs with diplomatic flags. Rebecca, Dad said slowly, what exactly is going on? Revelation. The lead vehicle bore diplomatic license plates and small flags identifying it as part of an official State Department convoy. Uniformed security personnel emerged, followed by individuals in dark suits who immediately began conducting a perimeter assessment. What the hell is this? Uncle Charles demanded, panic creeping into his voice. I pulled out my credentials wallet and displayed the diplomatic passport identifying me as a United States ambassador designate. This would be my security detail arriving for tomorrow's ceremony. The silence was absolute. Agent Patricia Williams emerged from the lead vehicle, my usual State Department liaison, flanked by diplomatic security service agents. Behind them, Deputy Secretary Morrison approached with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to high-level protocols. Ambassador Chen, Agent Williams called as she reached the terrace steps, her voice carrying formal authority. Deputy Secretary Morrison has arrived for the pre-ceremony briefing. The family stared as Deputy Secretary Morrison stepped onto the terrace. At 62, he was one of the most respected figures in American diplomacy, a man whose face regularly appeared on international news. "Rebecca," he said warmly, extending his hand. "Congratulations again on the appointment. The President wanted me to personally convey his confidence in your upcoming assignment." "Thank you, Mr. Deputy Secretary," I replied professionally. "Ambassador Chen," Agent Williams continued, consulting her tablet, "we need to review security protocols for tomorrow's Senate confirmation ceremony and discuss arrangements for your departure to Bucharest on Wednesday." Dad's whiskey glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on stone. "Ambassador," he croaked. Deputy Secretary Morrison turned toward the family with diplomatic courtesy. "I'm Deputy Secretary Morrison from the State Department, here to brief Ambassador Chen on her new assignment." "Ambassador Chen?" Bradley's voice cracked. "Yes, the youngest U.S. ambassador to Eastern Europe in State Department history," Morrison explained. "Rebecca's work in economic diplomacy has been extraordinary. Her coordination of the pharmaceutical aid initiative alone saved thousands of lives during the refugee crisis." Uncle Charles had gone pale. "Pharmaceutical aid initiative?" "Ambassador Chen developed the framework allowing private pharmaceutical companies to work directly with foreign governments during humanitarian crises," Morrison continued. "Her understanding of both business operations and diplomatic protocols made her invaluable." Miranda stared at me. "You're really an ambassador?" "Ambassador designate," I corrected. "The formal appointment is tomorrow, but I've been serving in acting capacity for 6 months." Agent Williams consulted her tablet. "Ambassador Chen, the Romanian Foreign Minister's office confirmed your Monday appointment. They're particularly interested in discussing the trade agreements you helped negotiate." "Trade agreements?" Mom whispered. "The Eastern European Economic Partnership," Morrison explained. "Ambassador Chen's work secured access to pharmaceutical markets across 6 countries, which should significantly benefit American medical companies, including regional distributors." The implication hit Uncle Charles like a freight train. "Regional distributors like our company?" "Quite possibly," Morrison replied. "The trade frameworks Ambassador Chen negotiated should open new opportunities for companies exactly like yours." Dad found his voice, though it came out as a croak. "Rebecca, you're really a United States ambassador?" "As of tomorrow morning officially," I confirmed. "Though I've been operating in that capacity since my interim appointment 6 months ago." 6 months ago, Mom repeated numbly. Around the time she told me I wasn't welcome at family gatherings because I hadn't accomplished anything meaningful. Resolution. Agent Williams stepped forward with professional efficiency. "Ambassador Chen, we need to conduct the security briefing. Given your assignment sensitivity, we'll need to clear non-essential personnel." "Non-essential personnel?" Uncle Charles sputtered. "Anyone without diplomatic security clearance," Williams explained politely but firmly. "Standard protocol for classified briefings." Deputy Secretary Morrison added, "Ambassador Chen's family is welcome at tomorrow's ceremony, assuming they pass the background checks required for presidential appointee events." "Background checks?" Bradley asked weakly. "Standard procedure," Morrison confirmed. "Full names, social security numbers, employment information, foreign travel history. The Secret Service handles screening for events involving presidential appointees." The weight was finally sinking in. I wasn't playing government or filing papers. I was about to become one of the youngest ambassadors in U.S. history. As the security team began setting up for my classified briefing, my family remained frozen like statues watching their worldview crumble. "Actually," I said, "I think my family should understand exactly what kind of work I've been doing." Deputy Secretary Morrison nodded approvingly. "Ambassador Chen's achievements really are remarkable. Her economic diplomacy has positioned her as one of our most valuable assets in Eastern European relations. The pharmaceutical distribution frameworks alone represent billions in potential American business, Morrison continued. Companies throughout the region will benefit from Ambassador Chen's trade agreements. Uncle Charles managed to find his voice. When you say, companies throughout the region, any American pharmaceutical distributor in the Southeast Corridor should see significant opportunities, Morrison confirmed. Ambassador Chen specifically ensured regional companies would have preferential access. Perfect irony. While they dismissed my career as meaningless, I'd been creating opportunities that would directly benefit their business. I don't understand, Mom said, her voice small. You never told us you were doing important work. I tried, I replied calmly. Every time I visited, I attempted to explain my work. But you'd decided government work was worthless, so you didn't listen. As my security detail prepared to depart, Dad said quietly, Rebecca, we had no idea. You had no interest in having an idea, I corrected. You preferred your assumptions. Can we fix this? Mom asked desperately. I considered the question. 4 years of exclusion and mockery had taught me valuable lessons about self-reliance. You can start by educating yourselves about what diplomats actually do before deciding their work has value. You can stop measuring success solely by quarterly profits. And you can recognize that public service is one of the highest forms of contribution to society. Bradley cleared his throat nervously. About the family reunion. About not inviting you. That's probably for the best, I replied. Representing American interests abroad requires commitment that doesn't leave time for family gatherings. As I walked toward my vehicle, Constance appeared with tears and a huge smile. I always knew you'd do something amazing, Miss Rebecca. Ambassador. Thank you, Constance. You were always the only one who believed in me. Behind us, my family stood in shell-shocked silence, finally understanding their failure daughter had achieved something they couldn't buy, inherit, or dismiss. Recognition from the highest levels of American government. The last thing I heard as my motorcade pulled away was Uncle Charles asking, do you think she could help us get those pharmaceutical distribution contracts? Even in their newfound respect, they were thinking about what I could do for them rather than what they'd failed to do for me. But that was their limitation to live with, not mine to fix.